how we are viewed by the people in our surroundings, whether it be at work or at school or any social setting where we're in an environment with our peers, the way that they interact with us and the way that we think that they view us can have a very strong impact on the way that we view ourselves. And this affects everyone. It doesn't matter how secure you are in your own way of thinking, or how comfortable you are with yourself. You can have a very strong will or self-esteem, and if your peers behave to you in a certain way, especially in a coordinated fashion or in a repeated fashion, it can affect any person, and it depends largely on the behaviors of those peers, and there's a lot of variables. But what I'm going to be talking about right now is something called mobbing, and this is a very effective social tactic, and it's another psychological weapon, if you want to. That's a good term for such a phenomenon would be to call it a weapon, because it is. It's a psychological weapon, and in a very similar fashion to how some of these other things can be used psychologically as weapons. This is also a very effective thing to do to someone, and it's used against victims of gang stalking and harassment. And mobbing, basically, in a summary, just means it's a group of people who are acting in a very organized fashion and in a synchronized way. Mobbing is not a random event, and it's very organized, very precise. And workplace mobbing is one of the more effective kinds of mobbing, and it's used readily in this kind of experience for the target. And essentially what happens is you may be a great performer, worker. You might do your job very well. You may. It doesn't matter what your field is, your activity, or what your role is. You could be. Now, this can happen to anybody, but no matter what your personal experience is, again, this is another thing that's very personalized. And during a mobbing episode, what happens is your social peers will, in a very organized fashion, begin to pick out things about you. It may be things that are faults. It may be small things that normally would not garner very much attention, but it seems as though they're harping on that. And you will overhear, in these cases specifically, you'll overhear people at the workplace saying things about you. You may maybe you did something very minor that everyone does, like you forgot to, say you were at a workspace or something, and you had your own You were using a keyboard and you forgot to dust the keyboard off when you left the room, and then you overhear 5 or 10 coworkers all together talking about, well, he didn't clean his keyboard off. This is horrible. I mean, should we write him up? What's wrong here? So this is the kind of thing. It's to, again, in a very similar fashion to gaslighting. It's there to make you question your own capabilities. It's there for you to reevaluate your role with your peers, and it's a psychological tactic that's very coordinated and it's very precise. And all of these things, if they were not as precise as they are, they would be ineffectual because they would be easily written off as being a random occurrence, maybe just bad luck, an everyday random thing happening. But when these things are repeated and they're done with multiple people in a highly coordinated way, again, it becomes very obvious that there's something more at work going on, and it's very damaging to a person, especially if they don't know what's going on. And if they're early in an experience like gang stalking, it can be very, very devastating to a person's mentality, because it does, the way that you perceive how your peers look at you has a big impact on how you look at yourself. And again, this can psychologically be used in an attempt to destroy somebody. And I have experienced this on some level in a way that is, I can effectively say, is far beyond any kind of random natural occurrence. And when you take this kind of activity in association with some of the other things that begin to happen to somebody in this experience, it becomes very apparent that there's something deeper at work. And so once it's recognized, just as any of these other tactics and things that happen, it's a lot easier to deal with once you recognize it for what it is. But it's very important that you recognize it for what it actually is, because if you don't, it can be very effective and very effectively used against you if you're going through something like this. So I think that that's an important subject when discussing something like gang stalking.